Hello, everyone, and welcome to another very special episode of Locked On Canadiens. We are here with our European expert, Patrik Bexell, and we are going to be previewing the Olympics, remember some guys, and talking prospects and everything else coming up in this episode. So stay tuned.
You're Locked On Canadiens, your daily podcast on the Montreal Canadiens. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We do love a good intro, folks. Welcome to part two of our very special European roundup this week with Locked On Canadiens and our special guest, Patrik Bexell. And as always, thank you for making Locked On Canadiens your first listen of the day every single day. Remember, we are available on YouTube now. If that's how you're watching this, at least I assume so. And we're free and available wherever you get your podcasts. I am one of your hosts. I am Scott Matla. I am joined, as always, by the incomparable active stick, Laura Saba. Laura, we're talking Olympics. We're having Patrik on again. The Habs aren't playing at all this week. It's a pretty good week to be on Locked On Canadiens, I think.
Yes, but it is not a good week to be on the Canadiens payroll, as unfortunately Claude Julien found out this week in a very bizarre injury. And we're going to talk about that, obviously. But first, let's say hi to one of our favorite people, literally, on the hockey internet.
Yes, Patrik, welcome back, everyone. Patrik Bexell of Habs Eyes on the Prize at Zeb_Habs on Twitter, our European prospect expert and draft analyst of all shapes and sizes. Patrik, thank you again for taking the time to come on the show and talk about the Olympics and the prospects with us today.
Thank you for having me. It's great. I mean, it's a weird Olympics, and normally we know quite early that if the NHL is going or not, so you sort of gear up to it. And here we're kind of hoping that they would go, but in the end they didn't. And that month, since that has been decided, I sort of lost interest a little bit. I'm sure it will gear up a little bit when you get into it. But yeah, and let's remember last Olympics was quite fun. Germany had a stellar performance. Russia won it was it in overtime or was it with 2 minutes to go? It was really, really close in the final, and Germany beat Sweden, beat Canada on the way to that final. So yeah, it's probably going to be some upsets again, and I think maybe Germany might be one of them because they keep their team with like two lines from each top team in Germany.
I am kind of hoping that we get that fun again in this. And as we were talking before the show, as we were kind of planning out this episode, there's a game that people on the internet like to play and that I love playing called Remember Some Dudes. And since this is a Canadiens podcast, we have to look over the rosters, and you pointed it out in our last episode where we were talking about the current crop of Canadiens prospects. You noted that playing for Sweden, one of their veteran players is former Montreal defenseman Christian Folin, who came over in, I believe it was the Dale Weiss trade from a few years ago.
Hey, come on. He's a living legend. We got Jacob De La Rose there. And obviously for you, we got Max Friberg.
I was going to say the last captain of the Ice Caps, Max Friberg, is on Team Sweden. And I hold a special place in my heart. Max Friberg was one of my favorite interviews I ever got to do. It is. I'm just looking over some of these things. I'm like, that dude still plays hockey. Like, I expected to see Yager on one of these rosters.
Nygren is not going, is he?
No, and that's kind of sad.
That would be like the other one. I think the only under 22 is the Toronto prospect, the Pontus Holmberg, which is going to be good for the Toronto guys to see him play at this level.
Yeah, but now we're going to find out about how he's better than any prospect the Canadiens have ever had because he played in an Olympics where no NHL players went. But that's
not going to win it. It's fine.
I got to ask, out of all these rosters, is there any former Hab besides Christian Folin that you're looking forward to seeing the most out of this? Like, I'm looking through Sweden now, and like Rafael Diaz is going. He's 36 years old, and I can barely remember when he was traded for Dale Weiss the first time all those years ago, and he's still playing hockey there. I
think for me, the top guy to watch really is future Hab. Simon Nemeth.
Yes, and we will be getting into those draft prospects. That's going to be in our next segment because I don't know anything about any of these players. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see them at World Juniors. Part of the reason we had Patrik back on again today is so he can tell us everything that I don't know that I can then tell other people. So I sound smart when people ask me for my draft opinions on Twitter. I suppose the big thing is on this, all eyes are going to be on Sean Farrell for the Americans, and they didn't take Caden Gooley for Team Canada, did they?
I think he's on an NHL contract, so he couldn't be taken.
That was a very weird thing that I didn't know if they were on an entry-level deal that counted or not, but Team Canada has actually a halfway decent team. Obviously, Owen Power is going to draw a ton of attention there, and playing against Nimitz is going to be last year's first overall pick, one of this year's top defensive prospects. That's going to be really fun to watch. And I got to be honest, and we're going to do predictions later on here. I feel like we're going to get some kind of crazy upset because these are guys coming from all over. These are not NHLers who have played together for years and know their systems and know how the other people play. We're going to see some real bad hockey in some of these games, I think.
But it's also like we see it with the handball tournament. The Euro handball is going on right now. And player has been in and out of the lineup because of positive COVID tests. So that's probably going to factor in during the Olympics as well. So you don't really know from day to day which team you're going to have. Obviously, everyone is going to create that kind of bubble, but can you keep it intact or not? That will be the big thing. But yeah, I think, you mentioned it, there are some really, really good players out there. And I'll be honest, I'll be honest to say that I think one guy that you really should, or we should really focus on is someone that plays in the SHL and is 25 years old, and it's Fredrik Olofsson, not related to Jacob, but he has 35 points in 35 games in SHL for a surprising team, Oskarshamn, but a team that not everyone expected to be that high up in the table at the time of recording this. He's obviously going to draw some attention from NHL clubs just because he's unsigned, he's undrafted, and you can pick him up much in the same way as we have done earlier with different prospects. And two of them are obviously on the Russia team as well, aren't they? Like our former two Russian defenders that we had in Laval for a while.
Hold on, I could find them on here. The Russians?
Yeah. I think they weren't they supposed to go?
Or is it the Czechs?
The Czechs. Yeah, it's the Czechs. Yeah.
The last great hopes of European defensemen in Montreal after Andrei Markov retired. Some guys who left midway through their season with the Rocket.
Yeah, but Sklinitska is there as well. So both of them are going together. So yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like those are probably some cool names to remember as well. Kovar is there. Yeah, I mean, like they're the funny thing is really like there is a lot of names that everyone will recognize from the European teams that are played in Europe for the latest kind of or the last years,
Yep. And the thing about this tournament is not only for, hey, remember some dudes. This is also a tournament that has some of the 2022 drafts, maybe underrated prospects because everyone is focusing on Shane Wright and people coming from North America. We're going to have Patrik school us on two people coming up from the Slovak team, and you're going to want to tune in for this. Patrik is as good as it gets. But first, folks, it is January. It's a new year. It means New Year's resolutions, and we're here to talk to you about Built Bar. Built Bar is the protein bar that tastes like a candy bar. And you're thinking, is it worth it? There's chocolate. Trust me, it is the ideal treat when you're on your road to work, after your workout, or you're just hungry. It's got low calories, low sugar, low carbs, 17 grams of protein or more, and it comes in so many incredible flavors. You can get coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, cookies and cream, mint brownie, so many more. And Built Bar is always, always, always adding new flavors. And if you go to built.com right now and use promo code LOCKED15, that's locked, all caps, 15, you're going to get 15% off your next order. Go check it out, see what's new, and use our promo code LOCKED15 to save 15% at checkout. And as always, thank you for making us, Locked On Canadiens, your first listen of the day. We are going to be back with whatever news is coming up this week for the Canadiens, more prospect news, what else. Now make sure your second listen is Locked On NHL, where the Locked On experts are covering the biggest stories around the league Monday through Friday in less than 30 minutes. Like us, it is free and available on all podcasting platforms. We are back, though. We are here with our fantastic guest, Patrik Bexell, at ZebsHab on Twitter. And Patrik, I suppose the biggest thing is there's not a ton of undrafted prospects going into this tournament, at least not potentially first-round players. But Slovakia is bringing two, and perhaps none bigger than Simon Nemec, who unfortunately was knocked out of the now canceled World Juniors tournament early on. He's drawing a lot of attention, and for good reason. What can you tell us about him that makes him such a can't-miss, gotta-watch prospect for this tournament?
I think, his defense is really, really stable. Gap control. Obviously needs to become a little bit bigger and more balanced on the skate. But definitely his defense is strong. And let's start with that. But and is always a bad, especially the way it has happened for Rasmus Dahlin. But he reminds me a lot of Dahlin. He has the same kind of panache on the blue line in the offensive zone. He has the same kind of, devil may care attitude, and suddenly he just decides to deke a few players and almost score a goal single-handedly. He's just that guy. I don't think he is a challenger for the top overall. I think so. But in retrospect, looking at, Svechnikov and Dahlin, that debate, you are looking to take the forward earlier. I would strongly think so and consider that myself if I was in the Montreal's position as a first overall pick. If they're second, I might just throw it in for good measure, just take him. But it's also the fact that defensive players will take a little bit longer to develop. And maybe, Dahlin went straight into Buffalo Sabres, but they never really benefited, and NHL is not a development league. I can see, we take a look at Simon Edvinsson, who plays another year for Frölunda. Take a look at Morris Seider, and those two players are going to create a fantastic Red Wings team that will last for 20 years. You give them blank checks to sign for the next 20 years, and they will do it. And you'll have your two first top pairing defenders forever. And Nemec is going to be in that same caliber, I think. Maybe not as physical as Seider and Edmondson, but they will not be he will be up there. But he might need to take the same route as Seider, AHL. And then obviously he went to Rögle and played a year because of COVID restrictions with the AHL and all that. So he got 2 years development, and you can see Seider this year when he enters NHL at such a high level, and he hasn't been rushed. And I think that is what you have to see with Nemec as well, rather than just, we take him over first overall. A little bit like Owen Power this year. You get him first overall, but you send him back to the NCAA and be mature, learn, be ready for when we call on you instead, and get that year going. Nemec is that kind of player that you would want in your team. The question is, when do you pick him? I see him as a top 3 right now. I seem closer to right than maybe we did before the season, because he's obviously risen highly, and the way he's treating the guys in Extraliga in Slovakia or in the Slovak Extraliga, it's incredible to see. He reminds me a lot of Dahlin with those kind of daredevils and attitude, and we all like that. And the question is, can you do it on a regular basis in NHL, and how long does it take you to get there?
So I have a question about that, because it comes up quite often when you're talking about prospects and you're talking about development, is what is it about defensemen that takes longer for them to develop? Is it because they have more aspects of their game to work on? Is it simply a function of they need to play more ice, and in the NHL maybe they would be played on a lower pairing? I'm always curious, because that's kind of like the conventional wisdom, and I always wonder, what is it?
I think, first and foremost, you need to learn how to protect and read the game. And obviously the step up, maybe, as a defender in juniors, you don't have to excel. I don't think you have to excel. You just have to be big, strong, and have a good hockey IQ, sure, but you don't have to have all the things working out perfectly, because you're gonna get away with being big, and I think that's part of it. Neither of these guys, Slafkovsky isn't that big either, and he's a center obviously. But you got Nemetz and Dahlin is not. I mean, like, he's big, but he's not over the top big, Sednochara big or something like that. But you get it. Like, I think you need to understand the game at a higher level, and there is this. I think I read it from the Secret Service. The agents in the Secret Service, they're all like sorted out. They all, like, everything is boxed in certain way because they know how to, like, they need to control everything, and that's a defensive player in the NHL. They need to whereas the opposition is a little bit more loose. They can figure out on the fly, and I think it's part that you need to be able to really control the game. That takes a little bit longer for defensive players to learn, and you see it. I mean, like, goalies take even longer to develop. So it's that way, really.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that comes up a lot, is that, goalies need a lot of play and against like better competition, as
and
good
then they need a
competition
bounce as well, because they just like, they need that. We see it with McNiven now, right? Like, you need to have the bounces going your way as well.
That's true too.
And Fukal that is in Washington, right?
Yes, yeah. Where sometimes you start your career with back-to-back shutouts and everyone in Montreal loses their mind.
Yeah.
The most amazing part is I'm looking at Nemetz's numbers, and he's got 1 goal, but he's got 22 assists, and I believe he has a bunch of records for production in the Slovak Extraliga. And then the other player you mentioned, Slafkovsky, I'm looking at his things here. He's playing in Sweden. In Finland. Sorry, yes. And he's 6'4", 225, and he's 17 years old.
Yeah.
And he's producing very well in the under-20 league there. And then he's got 4 points in 21 regular Liga games. But Liga is not an easy league to break into as a prospect unless you are otherworldly at this point. The draft is more than just North American prospects. And these are players not coming from a Sweden, a Finland, a Russia, where most people typically think of NHL superstars coming from. They're coming from Slovakia, which is kind of unheralded. And
don't let Slovaks hear that,
I love Slovakia. I loved watching them. And this goes back to Martin Revi being a Canadiens prospect all those years ago. There's so much talent out there, and I'm hoping at this Olympic they get to showcase that a little bit. I think there's a lot to really love and enjoy out of this, because you're going to see these guys that didn't get to play at World Juniors who are now going to be in the Olympics and are going to get to apply their trade in front of the entire world, not just the hockey entire world, the entire world. And I think I know we said it when we talked about some dudes, but like, it's a lot of fun, honestly.
And I mean, like, they have Finland, Latvia, Slovakia, and Sweden in that group. So, they're going to finish at least third. Question is what they do to Sweden now. But they should beat Slovakia. They should beat Latvia without any problems. It will be close games. I think so. Slovak hockey has really taken a step forward, and I'm happy for that. I have friends in Slovak teams, and one of my better friends in scouting is also in Slovak, a Slovak guy, and I think it's really good. And I think actually Slovan going back to the Extraliga and not dominating is good for hockey, because the young kids are not just going to Slovan Bratislava to play in the KHL now. Now they're playing in their regular teams and getting more minutes and playing at a higher level.
And folks, it is the Olympics, and we do have a guest. So guess what? That means predictions. And before we get into predictions, there might be less football being played, but BetOnline has way more stuff to bet on this playoff season. From points scored, totals, player performance props, to where the next fired coach is going to land. BetOnline is the #1 spot for all things NFL betting in 2022. And with the new year comes a new updated desktop and mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code LOCKEDON to get started. And it's not just football, folks. There's basketball, hockey, boxing, UFC odds, It's the best in the business. From sports right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, BetOnline is your #1 online wagering destination. It's the fastest and easiest way to wager all your favorite sports and play your favorite games. BetOnline, where the game starts.
Probably some Olympic sports there as well.
I would absolutely imagine so. And while we are at Locked On Canadiens are not an official betting site, we do love our friends at BetOnline. We're going to put Patrick on the spot. We're going to put Laura on the spot. We're going to put myself on the spot here. We're going to try and predict the Olympics, which has never gone well for anybody in all history. Patrick, let's start with you here since you are our expert. Give me your gold, silver, and bronze medal. And you know what? Let's have fun. Your biggest potential upset in this tournament, because I'm going to put you on the spot right now. I'm sorry.
All right. Let's start with the biggest upset. I think we actually have mentioned them. I think Slovakia will be, or the Slovak team will be maybe the big upset. I would also keep a very close eye on the Czech team. Teams that are flying a little bit under the radar. Teams that usually gel very well together and outperform their sum of their parts. The other team that I think will win it, that always does this as well, is obviously Finland. Finland has a great team, and I think when you look at the coaches in this tournament, there is no one better than Jukka Jalonen. I'll be honest with that, and I think that will carry the team all the way to the Olympic gold for the first time ever, and it's going to be one hell of a party in Helsinki when they land. Silver, then it becomes a lot of the draw, and so that's part of it. I don't think Russia will be in the final. I actually think the team will implode. So
that's an interesting take. I'm curious.
We are getting spicy. I like it.
So I think Russia will sort of bind it together and get the bronze medal. But then it's like, which team will end up second? Maybe I think the Swedish coach is too bad. But maybe I'll be honest, I don't rate this coach at all. If I rate coaches, Johan Garpenlöv might be at the bottom of everything. I know the Czech coach has outperformed himself before. Filip Pesan was rumored to be part of a background staff with New York Rangers ages ago, but took the role of leading the national team. Czech Republic might be there. I don't see US Canada going. I'll be honest with that. There will be 3 European teams on the podium. And let's, so Finland, Czech Republic, Russia.
Ooh,
that's I think that's also, it's cool because most of the time it's the same, when the NHLers go, it's always the same kind of storylines. It's always the same kind of teams. I feel that way sometimes about when the NHL players go, is that like you always want to see a different team, especially like different teams in the finals. So personally, I have absolutely no idea what to expect from any of these teams. I want to defer to Patrick's expertise. So if anyone asks, those were my picks too. I had the knowledge.
The only one I'm more confident about is Russia not going to the final and Finland winning. Those are the ones that I'm confident about.
I thought that Russia would go to the final. That's what I honestly expected, and I wasn't actually. I didn't know that the Swedish coach was going to be kind of a disappointment because I honestly thought that would have been the 1, 2, 3 would have been Russia, Finland, and then Sweden. And I didn't, I didn't imagine that. I was looking at the rosters, maybe not so much at the staff, and that's why I kind of have a little bit of a concern now that the Canadian team is taking a coach that does not have an illustrious career in the NHL, but maybe he'll fare better with these non-NHL players.
It is funny. I look at my predictions here, and I look at like the Canadian roster and the American roster, and I go, "Oh, there's a lot of prospects. There's some younger guys who are probably fighting for a chance to get back in the NHL." And like Laura said, Jeremy Colleton is not a good coach. He was so bad that even Chicago was like, "You're too bad for us." And the United States is coached by David Quinn, who is also not a very good coach. And there's a lot of young prospects here. I am beyond thrilled to watch guys like Sean Farrell and them play in the Olympics on the American team. I do not think they are going to get very far, at least in this. And I think that a team like Patrick said, Slovakia, is going to turn some heads here. I think Russia's going to get by into the gold medal game by the skin of their teeth in a lot of very close games that they should probably either win by a lot or have no business being in right now. Finland does seem like a safe bet. I wouldn't be shocked to see the Czech Republic in the gold medal game too. I think Canada, on the will and power that they have alone, will end up in the bronze medal game. But I honestly think somehow Russia's going to end up back in the gold medal game. I don't like that because it's boring to me. We saw this the last time there were no NHLers at the Olympics. I think Russia and the Czechs will play for gold, and I think Canada will play Finland for the bronze. I do not think Canada will win the bronze, which I'm going to get booted off my own podcast for saying that. But I think we're going to see a European podium in this 1, 2, 3. And there's no NHLers, but guess what? There's no NHLers for anybody. So I just want to see fun. And I think having that kind of chaoticness happening is the most fun option to have here.
One thing you have to remember, and was very, very successful last time, and we sort of skipped over it, but the current silver medalists or the holders are Germany. And they've done a sort of similar approach this year when you look at like bringing like a lot of players from Adler Mannheim, a lot of players from Red Bull Munich, Eisbär and Berlin, and then there are some others from around the Swedish and the NLA, the Swiss league. So essentially for you guys, the same league. Because no one knows about Sweden and Switzerland being different countries, right?
Hey, I know that the Swiss league, the NLA, is different from that, but I've also learned a lot over the past couple of years.
But I think that's a very smart way. They're having units that really work together, and that's what brought them to the final last year. It wouldn't surprise me if maybe, because I remember in the quarterfinal last time around that. Everyone was like, "Oh, Sweden lost to Germany, blah blah blah. We're gonna trash them." We were in, and the Canadians in Eyes on the Prize chat were already going like, "Yeah, we're playing the final against Russia," and then they lost to Germany as well. It was Schadenfreude, they say, right in German, which is not my strong language. But yeah, I think there will be some upsets. Germany might be one of those as well. They have a development program. Just imagine if Seider was still here or Stutzle, if you could bring these kind of guys in. Especially, I mean, like for a smaller team, those two guys would mean a lot, especially maybe in a season where the NHLer aren't going. I would have loved to see Ovechkin win that gold medal. That's the only time I probably would cheer for Russia. I'm surprised that maybe you don't bring Mishkov in, even if he's young, but he could be the Kaprizov of this tournament, going in, sorting out the doing that extra win, making that gold medal goal. And then playing at home for 2-3 years, and you build your PR campaign around that player like they did in CSKA with Kaprizov. So I think I'm surprised with that, but obviously Russia has a lot of things to. It's also about knowing who's who in Russia.
Yeah. It is unfortunate that we won't get to see Michkov in this tournament. That's actually one of the bigger surprises for me. I know Russia has a very unique way of usually how they do their teams. It's disappointing to not see him, but when World Juniors comes back next year, he's going to be another year older, another year more terrifying, and he's going to dunk on so many people in that tournament that a lot of people are going to be like, well, where did this kid come from? And Patrick and half of scouting Twitter are going to go and put their hands up and lose their mind at that. So as always, Patrick, we want to thank you so much for your time. This was a ton of fun. We love talking prospects. We love talking the Olympics as we get closer to the draft. I promise you we will have you on sooner than we did this time. We're not going to say we're doing it for several months.
I'll probably be around for the draft. I guess that's when you call again.
I was going to say we'll do a live show in Montreal from wherever we do this. Do not hold me to that because COVID is still a thing out there,
I think I've been toying with the idea about how the Swedish playoff goes and maybe do some Norlinder live from after games and stuff like that. That would be kind of awesome.
If you want to be in the know for all of that, you can follow Patrick on Twitter at Zeb, ZEB_Habs on Twitter. You can find all of his prospect work at Habs Eyes on the Prize. He does the recap every single week for us. It is
Well, every other week this year.
Yes. You can follow Laura at The Active Stiff, myself at Scott Matla. You can follow us on Twitter at LO_Canadiens or on YouTube, where you are watching this video and seeing this mug right now in your face for 30 minutes a day. And when you're done checking us out and making us your first listen today, please check out Locked On Bets, where they are killing it with all of your sports betting needs. We will see you all next time.